So let's get it popping. My name is Lawrence Delva Gonzalez, and welcome to the Financial Grill. Sometimes I kind of mess it up because I go by the neighborhood finance guy, so I always kind of mess that up. But ultimately, you're back in here in the driver's seat with us, having a conversation about money, finance, relationships, life, and just living in this post-COVID, post-retirement, post-inflationary period of our life where gas is high. At the same time, I'm always here with my co-host, Lovely. And we're graced by the presence of Atlanta, who has been disappearing on and off because she's always dating somebody. So let's go, Lovely. Let me have a conversation with you to open us up to our guest today.
Whoa. Okay. Atlanta, you kind of deserve that one for the last 2-3 rounds. Yep. I'm gonna go with LG. I think it's been 2 rounds. It's 2 rounds.
Oh, so I don't have a life. I can't get my hair done. I can't go
out.
Well,
we moved it to every other, and then we still don't see you.
I'm high in demand right now. So
okay. Y'all heard that, right?
What kind of job is this? What's going on? Do you have parents?
High demand. But my name is Lovely. I'm 1/3 of the Financial Grill. We have beautiful guests today. We're going to get into that soon. So Atlanta, I'm going to segue so that you can introduce our guests and, tell the people where you've been because you're high in demand, high value. I hear a bit of Kevin Samuels going on that end here. So
I'm just laughing. My face coming off. What's up, everyone? My name's Atlanta. 3 of the 3 co-hosts, and I have been a little MIA, but in good reasons. Just been a little busy, just out here interviewing people and doing what I have to do, what I need to do, right? But today is very special episode because we have the host of Turnt 30 podcast with us today. We have Mary, we have Jay. So Turnt 30 podcast, I was featured on earlier this year, and they just have such a great perspective about adulthood, about their own personal journeys, about just figuring out life. And I'm just such a huge fan of their entire podcast and just their branding, because it's something that we just don't share enough about our stories. And I just think that their collaboration with us here at TFG, the Financial Grill, is great, because sharing stories is actually just sharing our perspective and deep diving into the lessons we have learned. So we have Turnt 30 podcast with us. Mary, Jay, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, hey, Financial Grill. How y'all doing?
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
What up?
I'm Mary.
I'm Jay. And we're, like they mentioned, the Turnt 30 podcast, Turnt 30 and turning things up. I think the basis for us is just that we realize that a lot of times we feel like we're ill prepared, or certain conversations are not being had, whether people just aren't taught to be transparent. That could be a whole other combo of teaching people to actually have, whether it's emotional stability or being I don't know, but it's no reason I'm in my 30s, almost damn near mid 30s, and feeling lost as heck. Why I don't know so much about financial literacy, just life hacks, just working smarter, not harder, little things like that. So, you could always catch us on our pod, just throwing around shenanigans, but also real life conversations of just what the is life right now at 30. Is this 30? We're loving it at the same time, though. I think we've gotten a lot more confidence, at least me, because I know in my 20s, I was not approaching life this way. Now it's really, you could get with it or get lost. But sometimes I'm lost.
Yeah, right. Heavy on the loss, a little less on
our 30s. But we get there. That's our goal for 40s. It's up. Yeah. It's only up from here.
on the job training, we working it out. We're working it out.
So before the episode we actually recorded, we were just having a great conversation about just our, careers and things that we're trying to do, right? Just growing different perspectives. One of the topic in this case is just about, fertility and family planning. So Jay, you mentioned that you don't see a face when you are trying to, just help a patient out or trying to help people. It's all about just assisting people who just need your help, correct?
Sorry, I'm getting used to the whole mute function. You know, Mary and I, we just go and we're on our
Oh,
pod.
y'all don't be
We
muting at all.
don't
She's
mute.
like,
That's why
she's
you
like,
hear all the background clutter. So I'm trying to
this is
like
a respectable
mute, unmute.
podcast. It's a respectable podcast.
Right, y'all are classy. We're learning from
stepping it
y'all.
up.
Y'all classy. We just be having noise clutter and just be going and just be having our chemistry. We literally just treat it like it's girls' night. And I think that's what, you know, people vibe off that. They're always like, wait, y'all are having real conversations out here. I'm like, yeah, raw and on air. Like, I think people think you're supposed to only have this, like, you know, in the comforts of your own girl time. But yes, I am in healthcare. I work in reproductive medicine. And one of the conversations we were having was just that, at least for me, being in healthcare for all these years, I worked in so many different facets. I've worked like in hospitals, I've worked in outpatient settings, I've worked in corporate settings, doing compliance and regulatory. But the takeaway that I've gotten, at least being in healthcare, is that you can't choose who your patients are. You know what I mean? So you have to just learn how to find like a common ground or find a common respect. And I think that's been a valuable lesson for me walking in life, because I think, you know, whether it's like cancel culture, and I'm not saying that I don't agree with cancel culture, but I think sometimes obviously things can be taken to like the 10th degree when like social media is involved. But like for me, I can't just say, no, I don't want to deal with so-and-so because they don't align with what I do in my personal life. Like there has to be respectful boundaries. And in my field I have no choice. You know what I mean? You have to treat everybody that's walking through the door. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care where you stand on this. As long as when like I'm leaving work, I feel like you're not like waiting for me in the parking lot or something like that. And again, I don't have to like converse with you or like have evening time or high tea or just whatever happy hour socials with you after work. It's just that I have to deal with you during these work hours. So I think rather than have like a grudge or a chip on my shoulder about it, like, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with so-and-so today. It's just, I think I just come to work already thinking, check it at the door, mind over matter. Everyone at the end of the day, we come into the world the same, we die the same. So coming with just that basis of everyone is a human being. What you got going on in your personal beliefs is what you got going on in your personal beliefs. When we're in this door, we can learn to be respectful of each other. And that has really carried me, at least through my life. I think that's what's let me be chill and relaxed. Mary may not think that I'm chill and relaxed. I can be opinionated and I'll hold my opinions.
I was gonna object, but I let you go on.
I'll bring my opinions to brunch. They're not at work. I don't bring my opinions to work, but I'll bring them to brunch. And girls' night.
I will say too, just to give this topic a different direction. So there was a video that went so-called viral about this young woman who was experiencing the struggles of dating post 30, and one of her comment that she said was she's afraid that she will meet the right person or the one that we're always talking about. Is because if she is much older, then she won't be able to give, you know, her prospective husband or her future partner a child. I think that's something we don't really talk about, you know, after, you know, 30 or 35. What does that look like? What does family planning looks like for you if you don't have that person, or if you do, you know, like what is the option? Because I think we're just so tough on women about if we choose different options to be a mother or just be a parent in general. Because I know, like, you know, some friends and some other people that are, you know, just having some form of fertility struggles, and some men are just really, you know, prone to just want to have a biological kid. Like, I have to have a kid, you know, from my wife or from my partner. But we don't realize, you know, sometimes, you know, being a parent or just, you know, having children, it comes in different versions, and you have to be honest with yourself to see what does that version mean to you, becoming a mother, becoming a father. So that's something I think that it should become, you know, in perspective, because it's one of those things that we struggle in silence, and women are not really I don't think women kind of share their stories, or even men, because some men you know, experience fertility struggles as well. It's not always the women, right? And how does that look like for you if you're with your partner and you have this life plan with them and he can't give you biological children, you know? So that's something we don't discuss enough when it comes to that, especially in the Black community. We're really tough on each other about having, you know, children, or if you don't have children. So what has been, you know, well, I will say when it comes to children, so I am the youngest of 6. So, you know, my mom is not, you know, doubling down on me to have any children anytime soon, because she has so many, you know, grandkids and such, right? So I'm one of the siblings that do not have children at this point. But have it been like somewhat of a, you know, topic or sensitive topic,
Pressure?
pressure, we can say, about family planning, about, changing, our perspective, or how does that look like in the future. So just anyone can jump on. It doesn't necessarily have to be our guest.
I'm cracking up because somewhere I had this conversation like with my girls a while ago, but we were like, somewhere our parents went from, which I guess is understandable, but I feel like now when you're in your 30s, 40s, all your parents, all they talk about is having grandkids. Like, when are you gonna give me some grandkids? Why are you waiting so long? Especially I think from a generational thing where maybe they were having kids younger, or they're kind of just in that mindset, they're ready to be a grandparent and spoil and just whatever. But I think I remember we said this one time where it was like, where did our parents come from like, don't have sex before marriage, or be safe out here and things like that. Don't bring no babies home. Focus on your education. Go get your master's. Go as far as you can go. Do this, do that. Get, money's important. Degrees are important. Things like that. And then somewhere by like, they ask you to do all those things, but not realizing those things actually take time. You want me to go to med school and be a lawyer, Ma? Like, that means I'm probably not going to be done with all this stuff and the high debt. I'm going to be like well into my 30s before I can switch over to like family building. So what are we talking about here? And then you get to like your 32, 33, 34, and they're like, so any prospects of a partner, especially if you're single, because now they're thinking like, okay, they don't even have like a partner, so when am I getting my grandkids? I got married, I'm not divorced, but I got married, at 25, so they kind of just expected, I think within 2 to 3 years it would have been popping out babies, and they were just like, so what are we waiting for here? Like, what's going on here? I was like, whoa, what happened to you? You told me to go get my master's. You told me to do this. Well, now that you're married, I was like, whoa. And then now, especially in my 30s, anytime my uncles see me, and I always crack up, not to like put it on like a stereotype, but I think we're used to, I thought more women kind of would be like, any babies? Y'all gonna have babies? Y'all gonna have kids? Now it's my uncles. Whenever I see a guy, they're like, no baby yet? What's going on? I'm like, damn, unc, like, what's happening right now? Why are you clocking my uterus? But I think that's been a topic.
Yeah.
Why are you talking to my uterus?
What about you, Mary J? What's been your experience with that?
Oh, me? Well, I've already crossed that road, but I didn't have pressure because I have sisters that all had kids before me. I was the last one. So my parents were already grandparents. They were blissfully living in that life already. So it was kind of like, all right, we assume it's going to happen at some point. But I didn't really feel like pressured per se. I would say there's like a societal pressure of obviously like once you cross over to those like late 20s, early 30s, that it's like, all right, now you're about to be living with cats. Where's your man? Where's your child? Like, what you about to do?
Alana's already has a cat, so she's already crossed that.
Don't do that.
Damn, I feel like we 3 for 3. I think we 3 for 3.
There you go.
No.
Wait, anybody else got cats?
Hold on for a second.
No, I hate cats.
Who said I don't have a man though, Lawrence? What are you talking about?
Oh,
you see,
there it is.
You wasn't even tested. You wasn't even tested.
That's a whole other podcast. Continue.
Go ahead, Mary J.
No, we now I'm tuned into this juice. I was about to say we went 3 for 3. He been coming for Atlanta since like
he been coming for
the audience we wanted to know too.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I couldn't. That first shot that they fired was valid. Like it sounded like you was missing pod recording dates. I don't know.
And now we know.
Now we know she was getting her personal life together.
Listen,
okay.
Oh
my
my
gosh, I can't say.
I don't know how this conversation went. This went
left.
This went left.
This is fighting hot. I'm cracking up right now. So wait, Atlanta, you and your dates, what are some like how, because first of all, I think after like having a whole pandemonium and just the chaos and stuff like that, and like whether it's like online dating, whatever, how are you dating nowadays in your 30s and just nowadays with the state of the world?
State of the world, right? So yeah, back on the apps, meeting people, communicating with people, going out, just having a good time for the most part, and getting to know people, different races, different types of people, older people, younger people, my age, not my age. So it's been interesting. It's been interesting for the most part, but yeah, I'm out here.
Wait. So is it a yes? Is it official, or what's going on? Because you kind of like you hinted at something, but is it official now, or is like are you still?
Is it non-official?
That's what the audience needs to know. The people want to know.
Sure.
Before we can move on with our lives, the people want to know.
Hey, lovely. What's your take on, like
Look at the
societal
deflection.
Ooh,
Deflection.
the cliffhanger.
Professional journalism. Professional journalism right there.
Right,
What's your take on societal pressure with family planning, like, post 30s, and how does that actually look like for you? You don't have to give too much of details. It's really whatever you want to give, but like, what's your perspective about just the pressure being a woman and trying to navigate these dating streets and trying to family plan?
I know it was serious when my dad actually asked me. I was like, oh, you asking questions now? Like, oh. My dad does not we don't have like this deep relationship. He's in Haiti. I didn't really grow up with my dad to give context to all this stuff. And then it was like, oh, like late last year, man, lovely. It was one of those, what you doing? What's going on? And I'm just like, I'm here and I'm doing what I need to do, because I also know that I think there's a lot of pressure, but then there's not a lot of support. So there's pressure for you to take the actions. There's pressure for you to do all these things, but then there's a support that you might need to be able to actually raise a child. Like, I think we are doing this nuclear family thing here that's not effective. I'm just caveat that it's just not. We weren't meant to just be in a silo with the other partner and our children. We were meant to actually really do this in the community. If you look at I don't know if all of us are Haitian, but in the Haitian community, when you think about Haiti, like, you went to school, but by the time let's say you walked to school, you probably saw like 5 people that could have just slapped your head if you were doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing. And there's exchanges of goods, like, oh, okay, you have salt, I have sugar, let's exchange. But then we're here in this American context and we're doing the nuclear family. And I think it was Times of New York Post that wrote this article that this nuclear family thing is not effective. It's really actually causing people to be a lot more burnt out. So I'm required to do 40 hours of work, right? And then I'm also then required to then be like a present mom and a partner. And a lot of times the load is also really heavily put on women in a way that's like not sustainable. We literally have like 3 or 4 jobs, and it's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to do all these things? So because I know that context, I honestly really don't care how you feel about what I should be already doing, because I understand that you're not even operating in the same way that I have to operate. My mom, when she had to come to the States, she was able to leave me with my grandmother and my aunts in Haiti, right? That even her having that liberty to do that. Right now, if I pop up somebody's baby, it's gonna be me and him, because I don't even have, like, my cousin stays about 2 hours from where it's gonna be like babysitting or nanny or whatever else. And I have to think about those things, because I don't want to do it because I think I need to already do it. I understand there's a biological clock. I get that aspect of it. So I'm not gonna be like 50 and saying the same thing. I am making progressive plan, but I have to plan completely different. And even this year, I had to look at everything and say, hey, love, like, if you want to do this thing in the next 3-4 years, there are certain things you need to double down right now. And then if you're going to pivot, then at least, you're giving yourself a time to pivot. So I think there's a lot of pressure, but there's not enough support for the pressure that's being applied.
That was
hella support that.
Damn.
No, hella support that. I mean, it's true. In every facet of the village, you need your community, you need your village. But is it, like she said, is this sustainable, or is the environment even set that way so that the village can be present? Somebody may want to be present, but just the way that, we are in this workforce and these hours and this like lack of flexibility, or you really, really got to grind and be like that 1% at the top to be able to get certain like privileges and flexibilities where, for a lot of people, it's just not. And but I wholeheartedly agree. It definitely takes a village, definitely takes support, whether it's bartering, and it's like, what can you do? What can I do? Like, I'll go pick up your kid early so that you can do this. And then, this weekend you'll do the carpool for like a gymnastics meet or like a swim meet or things like that. So it is, you do need that community. And if you feel like you don't have it, that's just gonna, exactly like she said, like, okay, you have this expectation, but where's the support? Like, I need to do this logically. It's not just, I'm not just going to buy like something at the store. This is an actual child.
And
so,
to kind of circle back on something, I'm watching like a lot of the TikToks now with like the Gen Zs or whatever we want to label. And there's this undertone, like, my parents were not really there, or my parents didn't even really want me. I think my parents had me because they needed to have me, or it was, the acceptable thing. And really my mom like wasn't even ready to be a mom. Like, there's this guy I literally watched his thing yesterday, and he was talking about like he's a white guy, like pure, like European, all this other stuff. And he looks at this Black lady that lived next door as his mom more than his own bio mom. He was like, I worry when Denise doesn't pick up my call, not my mom, because I always knew that my mom had me, but it's not that she could be a mom. So we think that we tell women that it's instinctual, it's gonna come to natural. And then you have people have postpartum depression because you start to realize like, it's not clicking for me the way I thought that it should have clicked for me. And there's so much that's happening that we have to understand that a lot of the generation before us plowed through things. They pushed through things. But if we really started to talk about now, mental health is like a conversation that we have like openly. That wasn't what was happening. A lot of our parents did what they had to do, and some people didn't even do what they had to do, right? So then you have this next generation of children that are growing up like, you even really want me? And you see that with the attention that we're trying to seek, because you can't just be a parent, you also have to be present. Like I would just keep going back to like everything that's been like coming through my mind in the last few weeks is like, you can be around, but not really be present. You could be living life and not really be living in your life. You're outside of it. And I think it's causing so much that we're not talking about openly. And people are doing the cute pictures on Instagram and the family looks nice. So when you start coming, like talking to people underneath, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on under the surface. And so parenting shouldn't be something that we take lightly. So
definitely agree. I think like we have grown and a lot of things have like gotten better and expanded, whether it's certain fields and certain like inventions and just whatever. But then when it comes to like family life and things like that, I think we're still in this traditional, very narrow mindset. And you can't just treat like the world around you can't grow. And then you still want to be in this small traditional box and just say, you need to do this by like 24, start having your first kid. You need to do this by this time. And it's like, wait, the world around me can't even support that with the way of the world is going, number one. And there's this like quote unquote thing of tradition. I love that you brought that up about the detriment and the potential psychological effect, because people don't think that kids pick up on things. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I can tell that like, you know, I feel like an inconvenience. You may say you love me, but your actions speak louder than words. Like I feel like an inconvenience. Like either you're never really with us because you're constantly at work and you're saying you have to work because you have to feed us. So I feel like this like burden, or you choose to be at work. So it feels like you choose not to come to like maybe my extracurricular activities or participate in my life. So you grow these relationships with other people. You may feel closer to a grandparent. You may feel closer to an uncle, or like you said, a neighbor. So I think people just need to realize that yes, in that realm, you can't just step into it lightly, because it's not just about you. You're now setting the scene for somebody else's mental state. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, you know, and I really commend you for like, even just like you said, putting those measures in place and looking at, okay, what is my plan for the next 2 to 3 years? Because it's not something that you just step into lightly. And it's not, like I said, it's not just about you. Just kind of circling back to how I mentioned that I work in reproductive medicine, because I think now there's this empowerment that people can do things the quote unquote not so traditional way. Right now, we see a lot of people that are single women by choice. That's an actual term, and there's a book. I got put onto that like 5 years ago. That is, I'm a single woman by choice, because I think there's this stigma where you see a woman and a child and you ask about like a potential like paternal presence or a partner. And if they say, I don't have a partner, people automatically think like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like whether it's like baby mama drama or you're single or you can't do it. There are some people that like, I shouldn't need to. I think Rihanna actually said this, that when people were asking about when she's going to get married to have a kid, and she's like, I don't need a man to have a kid. It's exactly what she was like, I don't need a man to have a kid. And people may think like, what are you talking about? But it's like, if that's what I want to do, I'm not going to sacrifice, or I'm not going to settle for this like Joe Schmo that maybe is not bring what I need to bring to the table just because I feel pressured by a biological clock. So I think where people have these avenues now, or like same-sex couples have these avenues now to build their families in a quote unquote not so traditional way. And it's so funny because my parents and my family are super, super traditional, super strict. And when the idea of my ex and I potentially dissolving our marriage like came up, one of the first things they said was like, oh, well, before y'all separate, like, what about kids? Like, we'll help you or things like that. And I was just like, wait. I'm like, wait.
Well, what about
what happens to, no, sex report.
They don't care
what
about
happened
you,
to
like-
no kids
They're like,
without
they're like,
this?
what about the
Get a
kids
kid.
though?
Yeah, this goes
Can I
back
still
to them
get a kid out
wanting,
this
like
process?
grandparents. They're like, and I think for them, they're thinking like, well, now you're going to be in your 30s, starting all over. I think they were automatically just thinking that it was never going to happen. Like I was never going to have a kid. They already put it in this box. Like, well, if you're like in your 30s getting a divorce, okay, like, you know. But maybe for them, that idea doesn't exist of like maybe being an older mom or an advanced age mom, where it's like times are different now. People are delaying family starting, like purposely, not just because maybe they're single. It's like purposely to get other things. You know, kids are not cheap, but like the fact that they said that to me, I was like, oh, this goes against anything that y'all taught me as a kid. Now all of a sudden I could be a single mom. Now all of a sudden I can have a kid out of wedlock. Like, what are we? Y'all just changed up the script.
What
and
are
like
we doing
that,
now? What are we about anymore?
Yeah,
Where's the
that
fundamentals?
fucked up my psyche. Sorry for cursing. That messed me up so bad, my psyche a little bit. Because I think a part of me, like you said, the pressure, you think you have to do these steps in a certain time. I think part of me getting married was because I saw that for my future. I always know that I wanted to have kids. I don't know that I also necessarily wanted like a husband or to be married young, but I knew I wanted to have kids. And I thought that was like kind of my next step. And then when I realized, I was like, wait, it was like my light bulb went off too late, where it was like, oh, I don't need a man just for a family. I don't need to be pressured that I have to stay in somewhere that's like not the most fulfilling environment because I'm afraid of a biological clock. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, damn, do we postpone this? Let's just try to have some kids and co-parent. And it just was, had to dodge a bullet. We both agreed that was not, we argued way too much for us to think that we were going to successfully co-parent, but shout out to us for not caving into both, because both our parents said it. They're like, well, if you can, you know, at least just do that, get some kids out of the way. And I'm like, out of the way. You don't just have kids. You don't just have kids just to have kids. But
yeah, I'm gonna say
there's a lot of reactions here. So go ahead.
I 100% agree with that idea that you're not just supposed to have kids. As a person that was kind of had because my mom was trying to reconcile her marriage, I was, you know, kind of like Lovey said, that feeling of you not being wanted. I literally wasn't wanted. I was just a random guy. My dad didn't want me. Damn, this entire podcast became so therapeutic at this point. But ultimately, I don't like the idea that people are saying I could be a single mom by myself, or I could be single and or whatever, single and have a child, whatever that term was.
Single
also
mother by choice.
Single by choice.
Single parent. Men as well.
Parent.
Men can go with the surrogate.
It was so terrible of an idea because it's such a selfish way of. Well, I'm gonna say my part. It's my opinion before I get completely canceled in the game. Is that the person that says that, yes, they're looking out for themselves, but they're not looking out for the kid. The kid wants more than just you as the single mom that's happy and doing good and being well and happily and emotionally stable. That person is always going to be looking for their parent, their other parent, their biological donor, their father figure, so on and so forth. As a person that grew up without their parents around, I could tell you that's a very hard life for the kid. It might be fulfilling for the single by choice person. It might be amazing, a great experience, but the kid themselves are always going to be in that self-doubt, self-reflection, always trying to find this other thing. And they're going to have a hard time growing up. As much as the single by choice person think that they're doing a great thing by it, it's going to get very hard for that kid. I do understand, however, I always try to tell people there's a lot of people up for adoption all the time. For some reason, in our community, I never really see that as an option. For some reason, it's like we'd rather do anything else that's more caustic than actually say, you know what, there's a lot of people that look just like us in adoption and that we need to be prepared and ready for as well. So I think for me, I've always put it in the back of my mind, no matter what happens, I'm gonna have to step up and create an opportunity for me to, you know, adopt if I can and when I can. Because if I can't have a kid the natural way, there's a ton of other kids that need a lot of love and they need a lot of guidance. And that's where I land.
I'm confused though, because I was about to throw some shots, people. But I'm confused.
I know I made it hard for you to be canceling me.
No, but no, I love that you brought that up because I think some people don't think about that. I don't think it's biology is making family. Like I think it's about the environment and what raised you. So I do think you need to still nurture and supplement and be there for what the child needs. I still stand on my point that children pick up what they see. So if they feel like a burden, if they feel unwanted, if they feel left behind, of course it's going to mess with them. But if they have a loving environment where to them, it's like, it didn't matter who raised you, whether it was an uncle, a grandparent, a single mom, or I had a blended family, like, you know, two people that got together that maybe, you know, now have like half siblings or a stepbrother, things like that. I think it's about what the environment is reflecting. How welcome are the environment? But what threw me off, you said
I do have a question for you.
Choice.
I do have a question for you, Jay.
Go ahead, because I had a question for you. Go ahead.
Do you know your mom?
Do I know my mom?
Yeah, you know your
grew
mom,
up
right?
with my mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, do you know your dad?
I know my dad. I didn't really grow up with my dad.
Oh, okay, okay, cool.
So that's why I was gonna say,
I keep that energy. Keep that energy.
Having,
I was trying to be like Kevin Samuels right there, like in your face.
No,
I got you.
Well, what I was trying to say is I don't think you necessarily have to have a 2-parent household for it to be a household. So when you were saying you think the single parent by choice is either selfish or detrimental or things like that, I think being in a 2-parent household where you obviously see conflict and that they're not right for each other, and maybe they're just sticking around because they feel like they have to stick around, or it's cheaper for them to stay in the same household than to go separate ways because they have mouth to feed and they have kids. So again, you start to pick up this burden slack, because I love that you segued into adoption, because what threw me off, I was like, well, you support adoption, but do you only support it if it's going to be a 2-parent household? Because single parent by choice is also like, maybe I choose to adopt. I think the whole point is that if I want to have a kid, I feel like I can provide and have this like loving environment. I don't feel like I need to go the society and natural way of only having it biologically. Like if I had, God forbid, like cancer, or I'm just older, or some people are just born anatomy wise without a uterus. So I don't think that, some people feel like this will never happen for me. Like I've had, like I always say, like when I first started in healthcare, like 15 years ago, I would meet older people of a different generation that they didn't have kids, and their response would be like, oh, I was never married. But that's like, you're talking about somebody that like grew up in like the 50s, 60s. So for them, of course, maybe that's why they never had kids. They're like 80, 90 now, kind of regretting. They're like, oh, I wish. I'm like, oh, you didn't have kids. And their response was always, I was never married. So I think now we have this advanced society that is not just in these strict boxes, but I think, yeah, if 2 years from now, that's what I really, really want, and I don't have a life partner yet, I would adopt, or I would consider like donor sperm and insemination or things like that, because that's what I want. And I don't want to feel like I have to wait until I'm with someone to start a family. Lawrence.
Hey, I'm just sitting there because it's like everything about me, maybe it's because I was brought up Catholic, at the base level. So it's more fundamental level baseline religion. Like I think it's like we're playing God when we do we're gonna pick and choose how we want our lives to be. And that's just like a weird religious thing that's embedded with me because of where I'm from, right? But ultimately, I just don't, as a person, I grew up without their parents around. I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the experience. And I think the journey was a lot more difficult for me than it was for some other people that had their parents around. Not to say that, hey, having a situation which your parents are fighting every day is like this perfect environment, nor is it like grand. That's not what I'm saying. It's like, if you don't know who your parents are, that's a whole hell of a lot of other stuff that you're dealing with. Versus at least some people know who their parents are. Like I didn't really know my mom and dad until like I was 9 years old. So the first 9 years was just me always answering to other people, oh, who's your parents? And I'm like, I don't know. Like you ever seen a 2-year-old, 3-year-old answer that question? It's the most traumatic thing ever. Every teacher would ask me like, oh, why is your name Gonzalez? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why is your name your name? You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of thing.
Got it.
Like, who are you?
Yeah.
What are you? Seeking that identity. I think that's hard. It's horrifying. But I understand your point, and I could. Hey, we're both,
I get your point too. We're actually saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We can agree. Some things we're disagreeing on, but I think the underlying narrative is that we know what we don't want. Like you don't want that same kind of trauma. You don't want that same psych and that same mental issue that you're like, you know what, I would prefer to do it this way because I know how I felt not knowing my parents or not having this, that I was looking for this and I didn't have it when kids around me are asking, who's picking you up or who's this to you? How come you look different than so-and-so? So I definitely get it. And you know how that played a part in your life. So that is now your preference of, I know what I don't want. I know I don't want my kid to feel this way. So that's your preference. And people are entitled to their preference, I think is, so at the end of the day, we may not agree on how we're going to go about it, but I think we're saying the underlying thing that mental health is real. And we just need to make sure we're providing this like loving environment and be a part of the environment. But, I digress. I know I'll talk an ear off. So
no, I thought it was interesting. It's interesting points. I see Marie, you came off mic. You were about to say something. You're about to, beat me down while I'm down. It's cool. It's cool. Jump in for your homegirl.
No,
Mary.
Yeah, I understand what both of you are saying. I mean, I have a 2-parent household for my son. But if circumstances were different, do I think I could have been just as good a mom to him as I am now? Like, I mean, obviously you don't really know because people experience different things in life and different circumstances happen unexpectedly. A lot of the times, like people don't necessarily go into situations to say, I want to be a single parent, and some people do. Like, I think everything is just very specific to the individual, to the circumstances, to their their environment, their perspective. And I was just going to validate both of what both of your experiences, both of your perspectives, because I think it's great that we live in a time now that technology and science is so advanced to give options to people. Whether or not you choose to take those, then that's up to you. If you if you care to have a biological child, and if that's not the way that you can move forward with parenthood, then you don't want to, then that's your choice. But at least knowing that you have the option available to you, whether that's freezing eggs or surrogacy or different things, because there was a time that those things were not even available to people.
Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree because we don't have these like real transparent conversations when it comes to this. Mary, you made a great point about now we have these advanced technologies about you can actually be in your mid to late 20s and say that, hey, I'm going to just push off kids the next 5 or 6 years. Let me just save my more healthier or younger eggs now and see how that works the next future. So let me just plan it out, respectfully, of how can I go about doing that with my partner, or if I choose to do it with myself, then I'll go about doing that as well. It depends on that individual and what they will want how their family to be built. So there are options how people are building. Lawrence made a great point about kids adoption. A lot of people don't discuss that as well. And just real talk, if you are with your partner and he or she cannot, give you biological children, how does adoption looks? Would you love that child even, more, even less? They're not biologically yours, but it's still your child, right? Because you're facilitating them in a home that is loving, that is caring, and you want them there. You want to help them, and guide them to grow up just in a way that you think is great for the child's spirit and the child's life. So we don't have these real transparent conversations, because if I'm with someone and I can't produce kids for him, is he going to leave me? Like, is that a conversation we should have? But a thing about, I looked it up because Jay mentioned about single parent by choice. So the book that she referring to is there's a book called Single by Choice. And what single by choice means is that you're willing to get into a relationship with the right person, and you won't be with anyone else. You're good, you're strong, you're 99% sure, you're happy by yourself. Just because you're single doesn't mean you're lonely. So I think that concept of just single by choice is that, some people say like, oh, you're just not chosen, nobody wants you. No, you just really want the right person for you. That's all it is. You want the right person for yourself. And in the meantime, what are you doing? You're probably working on, your finances, getting your credit right, or working on yourself, your physical self, right? Maybe some things that you are experiencing, you may getting, more therapy for yourself, some trauma that you're trying to resolve within yourself. There's so many small nuances that we don't talk about being single by choice. And you just haven't met the right person. Everyone just don't, land on their husband just like that and let's get married, right? It's everyone's story, everyone's journey is different. But something that Lawrence mentioned a few podcasts or episodes ago is how we just have to let go of outcomes, because you think this idea that you have of your life is just going to be, black and white, where there's no gray areas. And we have to kind of let go of that, because it's strained us to kind of experience something different, right? I think it'll still have the same outcome. It'll just be seen or probably experienced different for you. And where we're doing it, just putting too much pressure on ourselves or partners or our friends and our family about how life should be or how it should be designed for us. So that's something we just have to let go. Just let go of outcomes.
Yeah, I'll also say this. I think part of it is like, I think we all have to do our own emotional journey or maturity journey, if that's a thing, becoming more and more mature in how we understand how life is today. think a lot of us grew up with these ideas of Disney, you know, of maybe the rom-coms, the sitcoms, the every com on TV. We internalize all those things to be this perfect interpretation of the 30-minute, you know, lifestyle, but it's not true. I think there's a lot of work that can be done. There's a lot of understanding that can happen, especially even on the guy side too, because a lot of guys don't really process the idea of infertility within themselves or within their partners as well. And what does that mean? How does that change? And is life lacking if it's not, it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to turn out? And I always try to tell people it's not lacking, it's just different. I've seen friends that I guess they couldn't get married, so they got eloped. And one of she's you know, I'd be out there, so I have conversations with people all the time. She's like, I don't like the way this makes me feel because I always thought I was going to get married. And I even told her like the elopement was amazing. The photos looked at bomb. You look amazing. Your husband look amazing. You have the 2 kids and you having a great time. Life is not what you think it is. It's everything that it is right now that you're looking at it. And for some people, because we live too much on social media, too much in the celebrities, too much of whatever's going on, in truth, we're not living right now. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people need to step back, become emotionally and mature about their entire journey and change along with the process. And some people, let's be real, you know, I know you try to make it nice for some people were not chosen. It is what it is. It's what it is. There's some times when I was growing up, I wasn't chosen. Let's not lie about it. Let's not make an excuse.
That's valid.
Let's keep it real.
Somebody better. That's why.
I love that you said
you're single voluntarily. You're voluntarily single until somebody shows up. Like, let's be real.
Nah, I don't.
I understand the point.
I think it's the mindset. Yeah, I think it depends on the person. And I think exactly what he said, you have to do your maturity and your emotional journey and healing and figure out what's your trigger, what, like, you know, whatever is like, you know, maybe down in your heart that you feel like less than, because I love that he said that your life is not lacking, because that's very valid. And I think a lot of people don't translate that, or they don't necessarily believe that. People will say that, but do you honestly believe it? And I think sometimes when push comes to shove, people will say, no, I'm painting my own picture. I'm painting life my way. But they low-key still want to paint it according to that portrait that was given to them. Like, just like you said, like the person is married. You're saying like, oh, I always wanted a wedding, but you know, a lot of things, some people worry so much about the wedding. You need to worry about your marriage. What is the state of your marriage? So I definitely agree. The other thing I was going to say is that, no, it is actually a community. It's SMBC. So it's that single motherhood by choice. I obviously work in various sectors. So I always say partner or parent, because there are different versions of families. And whether it's blended families or whatever, I don't like the word alternative. I don't like, you know, it just seems like, you know, this against anti-traditional. So I don't use the word alternative. I use blended. But yeah, the single mother by choice community, there's a couple different like books, Single by Chance, I think, Mothers by Choice, Born from Love, you know, Motherhood My Way. But it's like, if somebody is interested in looking into that, because maybe they've never heard that term, single motherhood by choice, is definitely, I think it gives you that empowerment. I don't think it needs to still just be about motherhood. But I think the reality is just that we can change a lot of things. We can make a lot of advancements. We can push back a lot of things. We can hold off and enjoy our lives, enjoy our roaring 20s, our 30s, and hold off on doing some of the other things that make us feel a little shackled or settled down. Life is about enjoying, but we can't front about biology. You know what I mean? So I think that's why sometimes women take a little bit, like a little harder sting to it sometimes, because men can have kids pretty much until they're like 80, you know, depending. And that's not everyone. Men struggle with fertility issues too. But I think it's just the reality of, because maybe, I think if you had to think about like time is ticking, we always like, you know, whether it's like a deadline, filing your taxes, whatever, once there's a deadline, you feel like pressured and your mind is like scrambling a little bit. But I think if there's no kind of like deadline, or that deadline is like until you're 50, 60, you don't think about it as hard of like, all right, I'm 35. What do I see for these next 5 to 10 years? Do I see myself even building a family? Would I be okay? Like he said, is your life lacking? Would I be content? I always tell people, you just have to feel like you put your best foot forward. Like, as long as you're content in your choices, because the choice you make today is not going to necessarily be the choice that you make next week. Life is about change and evolving and being able to run with the punches and run with the curves. Like, but if you, for some reason, can't handle a curve in your life, I think that's a bigger issue that you may need to go like handle. If every time there's like just something's thrown at you, a curveball, you're just like, you know, just unraveling, I think there's a bigger issue there. You know, you can't just say, I'm going to do this by this age. I'm going to do this by this age. I'm going to have that. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to have a house and I'm going to do this investments. Like, if you're gonna operate like that with just
If you
plan
can't
A and
handle a
plan A
curve,
only,
you should not be a parent.
Oh.
That's actually the bottom line to that. So that wraps that up. Like, you cannot handle curveballs, then children are not in the cards. Those are not for you.
What do you feel like been
Kids
your
be out and throwing out
experience?
curves all the time, like curve.
Mary, what do you think has been your expectation versus the reality now that you are a mother?
Well, for me, like I said, all of my siblings had kids first. So I had like kind of a front row seat to seeing some things playing out. So this wasn't like my first rodeo per se. But basically exactly what was just said, like, don't have expectations. Like, that's what I learned. Like, do not have expectations, because like, nothing will go how you planned. Nothing will be what you thought it would be. You don't know who this person is going to become. So don't even like enter it expecting like, oh, like, jokingly, my husband will say something like, oh, he's so tall, he's gonna play basketball. And then I always throw it out there like, well, what if he wants to be a gymnast? Or like, I always just like throw something else out there, because I'm like, you have no idea who he's going to be. So I think that's the biggest takeaway for parenting for me. Like, just don't have expectations, and just do the best that you can do. Like, we're all learning as we go. Your parents were learning on the job, we're learning on the job, and then you just try to just do better, be better than I guess the generation before you.
I'll double down and say, yeah, we definitely don't know who we are all gonna become. So it's not just the kids, not just our partners, it's even ourselves. Like, some people change in that process of becoming parents. Some people, they think they could be parents, and they mess it all the way up. Or some people don't know that they could have been parents, and then they end up being parents, and now they improve, dramatically. So there's a lot to do about life that could change in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And we owe it to ourselves to allow ourselves to become whatever that's going to be. And to Jay's point, not all time is like this, these big obstacles as much like something that's against us. The fact that you need to have a 5, 10, 20-year plan, it should excite you. It should keep you on track. Like, the idea that, oh, guys could have kids until, I don't know, the end of times, I don't think is really that valid. Something that we constructed in our minds that to say, but guys need to know that, hey, you want to live your life as soon as possible, because we're delaying our lives now as guys, because, I could do whatever until I'm 40, 50, whatever. Nah, man, like, you need to start living your life today. If you're 20 right now, start doing something for yourself. You need to go to school, you need to go to class, you need to get a job, all that stuff. You can't delay and wait until this perfect moment to start living life.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, mic drop right there.
agree. Tell the rest of the brothers to catch up though. I just feel like, and maybe Atlanta can let us know about
it's like that.
dating. I'm just saying,
tell the rest of the brothers to catch up.
Let's just be honest. The conversations that people have in their like early 20s, then mid 20s, then early 30s when they're dating, were these conversations being had? Like, is that even on your radar, on your mind? Some men are, and I'm not putting everybody in the box. Some women don't even want to talk about it. They just want to enjoy life. Other women in their 20s, they're ready to talk about like building and a foundation and a family. And there are some men that are younger and they already know this is what I want. Like, this is what I see for myself. I'm not rushing it in a timeline, but this is what I see myself. Are you on board or not? So I think everybody's different, but I'm just being honest about the dating world 10 years ago.
Life hack for young men, for the ladies, life hack here.
I know what you're gonna say.
The guy that dates you for the first time in his life, you like the first girlfriend, he will go all the way technically. Like, he's that kind of guy. If he likes you that much, he's willing to get married. If you actually had that boundary, he's gonna be willing to get married just to get at you, so on and so forth. Ultimately, most guys are willing to have that conversation very early. I think as we age through the process, we start saying, well, I guess we don't have to. And yet again, that practicalness of guys show up where he's like, well, I guess if we don't have to, I guess we don't have to. Like, versus if that was the rule from the very jump, that's where a guy's gonna go. So the first time, like the first girlfriend I had, man, if she wanted to go like tomorrow to go get like married, I would have done it. That's just how a guy's mind is for some reason. Like, we're like, oh, I'm in love. this has to be it. Like this is the one. So therefore, I'm ready to go do this thing, even though you're financially underprepared with whatever you're gonna do in your mind, because you're in love. You just figure that's what you're gonna do. That's the life hack. So if a woman wants to get married quick, remember that first guy, he's ready to go. But it could be a mistake. But it's okay though.
I was about to say there's a lot of flaws in that theory.
Let's
move
along. Did I tell you it
along.
was perfect? Did I tell you?
Let's move
I thought
right
it was a
along.
life hack.
That was funny.
So,
Okay.
so we wrapping up. That's how we're gonna do this. Then let's do it. Like she make it seem like nobody could see you when you're making that face.
I know. I had to like.
Fourth shot fired
Wrap
in Atlanta.
it up.
Lawrence
Wrap
been
it
coming
up.
for the whole episode.
And like the entire time, I'm
So
like,
that y'all
okay,
know.
then
No,
you
this
wrap
is-
it up.
this-
As
then.
a bystander, this is the fourth shot.
No,
Shots fired.
all the time. This is all the time. But
Hey,
the
the audience actually said they sided with me. She said she fired shots at me. She hasn't apologized on air. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
I would like to thank you, ladies, the Turnt 30 podcast for being with us. This was such a great conversation. We dive into some great points and discussions, and this is why I love just having you and listen to your podcast. I'm a big fan because you ladies just drop gems and really give your own personal stories and journeys, because it's not one lane or this other lane or this idea what we think a life should be for us. We have to kind of create and roll with how life should come about for us. But thank you ladies so much once again for being with us. Before we let you ladies go, please let the audience know where can we find you.
Thanks so much for having
Always
us.
see
We really
Jay always
appreciate
Jay
it.
always does the same thing. I see she's the wrap it up. Mary, tell us something about us. It's like
Stop
every
it.
time.
No, because we didn't want mic clutter. That's what we try to, we trying to learn from y'all with the muting and the mic clutter, like who's gonna speak to avoid, the
we're
mic
still
clutter
learning.
missed no edits. But no, thanks so much for having us. We're the Turnt 30 podcast. That's Turnt with a T, TURNT, the number 30 podcast. We're on all your major streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, iHeart. Please go check us out. Leave us a review on Apple, leave us a review on Spotify. Go on our Twitter page. We be in these Twitter streets stirring up
I like to get the people going, riled up.
Exactly. And on Instagram, we love conversation. I think that's just that's been the premise of why we started, just to have these conversations, keeping the conversations going. You see, we could go 0 to 100 real quick. We'll have like a simple conversation. Next thing you know, we have it like life. Like, all right, hold on, we're gonna need more wine.
Whole ass therapy sessions.
Right.
Like,
we might need even harder liquor than wine. Yeah, that's how it go. But we're having a great time. We also love listening to y'all's platform, because I think you do a great job of just blending real life and just having real life, current event discussions, and then also just going back to being like, financially responsible and just learning the things that weren't taught to us, and let's just work smarter, not harder out here. So I think you guys have an amazing platform. We're so happy to have been invited on it.
Yes,
and then we'll just take it from there.
No, I've been loving the episodes as well. I'll co-sign for the fellas. Please tune into some of these other diverse podcasts beyond Kevin Samuels or Hardly Initiated or some other guy's platform with a guy with a cap, so on and so forth.
Y'all brought Kevin Samuels up like 4 times.
Right, I'm thinking like, do you know him?
Yeah,
No, listen to the. No, I'll be like, listen
or
listen
subscribe.
to
The
the
Turnt 30
ladies.
podcast is not.
I'm telling you, no, it's fire. Like I've listened to like the Entanglement episode. I thought, hey, that'd be going wild. The Black Card episode. There was another episode. Was it a Situationship or something? It's kind of like you eavesdropping inside a woman's conversation.
Oh yeah, everything you would talk about. You know what I mean? And I think fellas have the conversations too. I've been around my male friends, and I've been like, yo, y'all be having conversations too. They just don't want to say that they get transparent. So I think, we talk about everything. And I think for us, we bring it from like an unpopular opinion perspective. I think people expect us to always side with like women. No, y'all be wrong in these situationships. Y'all let it get this far. Y'all be wrong. I'm sorry. Like he was. Yeah, just put on your clown hat, get in your clown car, and keep it moving. Like that's it. Like
get in a clown car? My God.
I think most women do place accountability to each other or just on ourselves. I think it's just like public masses and opinion that we don't, but we really do. Like I don't know why people get this conversation and topic that we don't. We do.
She just said it. She just go online. You'll find women are not accountable for nothing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Well, I don't want to say for nothing,
really
but
no.
It's
some.
majority.
Talk about
Okay,
some.
see,
but
in
I was about to say
measures,
for
in
nothing.
measures, women just be like, I ain't do it. It's like, I know he was a cheater before I got with him. I just didn't know he was gonna cheat with me or cheat on me.
Everyone wants to be the exception to the rule. I always like default to he's just not that into you. I'm like, yeah, you're not. Everyone wants to be the exception to the rule, and no, you need to follow patterns. That's the rest of life. Like no one's gonna give you credit. Like, you know what I mean? Nobody's giving you a loan and be like, no, but I can make this work. Let me be the exception. I have poor, payment history. I have this. Let me be the exception.
Those are the worst things that ladies be saying. That they be saying some weird stuff like, "Hey, accept me as I am." I'm like, you sound like a problem. Like you sound like a place I want to avoid. Like it's like, my friends don't think I'm a problem. Like
me and my Scorpio energy, we feel attacked. You gonna accept this as we are? Me and my big Scorpio energy, I
date
feel attacked.
your friends at that point. Just date your friends.
Thank you for being part of the podcast. Ooh.
Thanks so much, lovely. Thanks so much, Lawrence. And thanks so much, Atlanta.
So nice to meet you guys.
See y'all
Lovely
next
comes
time.
in with the calm, relaxed demeanor. Not on my watch.
Thank you, ladies.
All
so
right,
much.
bye, y'all.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Jay.
Bye.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to the Financial Griot podcast, powered by the Wealth Builders Collective.